Hi, my name is Kristen Neves, and as I approach my 20th year in the nursing profession, I want to share where my journey in nursing has landed me. Unfortunately, as you guys probably know, nurses are not always the kindest to each other, and I want to use this platform to help support my fellow tribe of nurses. So with that being said, I began my nursing career in the emergency department, and I absolutely love the ER. Throughout my tenure in the ER, I became a charge nurse and a triage nurse, which really sharpened my assessment skills. It was also scary at the same time, knowing that you had people in your waiting room that could be sitting there for 12 hours, and if something happened, it was on you. After I had my first son, my perspective changed when I was challenged with trying to find an open daycare before 7 a.m. because, like me, my husband at the time also worked shift work. And again, I love the ER and all the excitement it brought, but with that, it also brought stress and trauma. And I knew, looking around, I was like, I'm not gonna be able to do this forever. So when my son was about 8 months old, I decided that I was gonna go back and get my master's degree and become a nurse practitioner. I'd also heard that nurse practitioner programs were going to become doctorate programs and not master's programs. So I figured I better do this now. And I also really didn't want to commit to a doctorate program. So I decided to go into the family nurse practitioner track because, number one, I wanted the pediatric knowledge after having a child. And I also thought that it probably would help me be a little bit more marketable and I'd have more opportunity upon graduation. I continued working in the ER throughout school and upon graduation to pay back the time that I owed the institution for the tuition assistance that they had provided me. My first job out of nurse practitioner school was part-time with the internal medicine doctor whom I did clinical rotations with throughout NP school. He was a great teacher and was expanding his practice right around the time when I graduated, which really kind of worked out great. Internal medicine, I have to say, was a really good foundation for me as a nurse practitioner because although I was scared every single day of my life for about a whole year, it really taught me how to treat everything across the board. And there's still things that I remember from doing internal medicine now. Unfortunately, he decided to cut hours with the business expansion due to costs, and I continued working there 2 days a week, but I also got another per diem NP job as a palliative care nurse practitioner. This job was really great because I was rounding on patients in the hospital and it was really flexible. I basically had X amount of patients that I had to see a day and I really just had to, get it done. Eventually I had my second son and I left the internal medicine practice to begin working full-time as a palliative care nurse practitioner. As a palliative care NP, I learned so much about family dynamics, communication, pain control, and specifically cancer patients. So as time went on, I really did like palliative care, but I became discouraged with really never being able to offer patients and families good news. And then I was approached by one of the oncologists who consulted us for palliative care. And I guess he was impressed by my work as a palliative care NP and he needed a nurse practitioner. I was a little surprised that he was willing to train me because I was green essentially to oncology, but was also really excited to have the opportunity to go back to working at the same institution that I worked at as an emergency room nurse. So I accepted the job and began working outpatient as an oncology nurse practitioner managing hematologic malignancies, including lymphomas, multiple myeloma, leukemias, and bone marrow transplant patients. This was incredibly overwhelming at first, and I definitely questioned my abilities to manage such complex patients from time to time. However, as time went on, I became really confident, and despite I think what most people think when they hear the word cancer, which is depression, no good news, I actually did have the opportunity to provide good news to patients and their family members. Eventually, I transitioned to our dedicated breast cancer center and began treating breast cancer patients primarily, as well as some other solid tumor types like prostate and colon cancer. I will say that having treated most cancer types, that breast cancer for sure is the most challenging, and I became totally burnt out. So I knew it was time for a change when I would come home to my kids at night and literally felt like I had nothing left to give them. I also became very frustrated with feeling like there was no opportunity for growth within this healthcare institution. There was a lot of healthcare dynamics, bureaucracy, and a recurring physician turnover rate, which really left me frustrated. So I began looking at jobs in the pharmaceutical industry, as well as other nurse practitioner jobs within oncology at local institutions, because the one thing I knew was oncology was my calling, and I knew I was never going to leave the oncology field. So after dealing with work turmoil, a divorce, and at least 1 year of interviewing for probably no joke about 10 different jobs, I finally had an opportunity to become an oncology clinical educator with a very large pharmaceutical company. And it was exactly what I wanted, because I really didn't want to become a sales rep. I wanted to impact nurses. So here comes Kristen entering the pharma world in January of 2020. Lo and behold, COVID hits literally 2 months later and the world shuts down. But during this time, I managed to successfully launch a new drug virtually and really began looking around the pharmaceutical industry and saw that there was this enormous amount of opportunity. So I began thinking about the one thing that I swore up and down that I would never do, and that was go back to school to get my doctorate degree. And to be honest with you, I never really saw a benefit in a doctorate degree until now. So most leadership positions within pharma are typically held by PharmDs or individuals with doctorate degree. And this is exactly what I wanted, right? More opportunity. So after 11 years of being out of school, I started my doctorate of nurse practitioner degree. I really wanted to pursue a medical science liaison role within pharma at some point, and knew that I would likely need this doctorate degree to be considered. So I learned my role as an oncology clinical educator. I learned it really well. I took some leadership positions within my team. And after 2.5 years as an educator, I then had an opportunity to become this medical science liaison, specifically in the breast cancer space, but it would require me to change companies. So after much thought and consideration, I decided to go for it, and I am currently a medical science liaison. And after 2.5 years of pursuing my doctorate degree, tons of writing, moments of tears, I finally graduated with my doctorate degree last week. And I share this with you because when I started my nursing journey and my career, I never would have thought that this is where I would be today. So I stand before you to encourage you. The nursing profession has so much to offer you, but you have to go get it. And if it's something that you really want to pursue, just stick with it and be persistent. If you like this video, please hit the like button and subscribe. I will have a consistent schedule of posting content relevant to the nursing profession and the challenges we encounter. If you have any feedback on any topics that you want me to cover, please leave them in the comment section below.